Rome, year 200 AD. The military consumes 3/4 of the imperial budget. The government debt is spiraling out of control. The currency is being diluted. Wealth inequality is at historic highs. Political corruption is rampant. Foreign wars are draining the treasury. The citizens are demanding free bread and entertainment instead of structural reform. America, year 2025 AD. Military spending dominates the discretionary budget. The national debt has crossed $36 trillion. The currency has lost 98% of its purchasing power since the creation of the Federal Reserve. Wealth inequality rivals the Great Depression. The political system is gridlocked. The citizens are demanding stimulus checks and streaming services instead of structural reform. It is impossible not to see the reflection. Rome took 250 years to collapse from its peak to its ultimate fall. Because of this, everyone assumes America is on the same slow path. You see the books and the documentaries asking the question, are we Rome? But here is what the experts get wrong. The comparison is not wrong. It is simply incomplete. The similarities are not the story. The differences are the story. And those differences do not mean we are safe. They mean we are in immediate danger. Every single difference between ancient Rome and modern America makes the collapse happen faster, not slower. Rome was an agricultural society. America is a digital post-industrial society. Rome had 5 centuries of unity before the cracks appeared. America has had 250 years total. Rome's debt was internal. America's debt is global. The most terrifying variable is speed. Rome took 250 years to fall. America has compressed that same cycle of decline into just 54 years since 1971. The next phase will not take centuries. It will take 10 to 20 years maximum. In this video, I will show you the specific mathematical acceleration that proves America is following the Roman pattern, but at 10 times the speed. We will look at why you cannot prepare for a slow decline, and why the system is mathematically guaranteed to break before the year 2035. Before we look at the acceleration, we must establish why the Roman comparison is valid. There are 7 specific parallels that signal the end of an empire. First is military overextension. At its height, Rome required 30 legions to maintain its borders. It controlled territory from Scotland to Iraq. The problem was not the size of the army, but the trap of maintenance. If Rome withdrew from a border, barbarians would invade. Rome could not afford the army, but it could not afford to disband it. America is in the same trap. The United States maintains 750 bases in 80 countries. The real cost of defense is over $1.5 trillion annually. If America pulls back from Europe, Russia expands. If it pulls back from Asia, China expands. The empire cannot contract without collapsing. Second is currency debasement. In Rome, emperors clipped coins and mixed copper into silver to pay their bills. Over 60 years, the silver content of the denarius dropped by 95%. In America, we do not clip coins, we click buttons. Since 1971, the dollar has lost 98% of its value against gold. The mechanism is identical. The government prints money to pay for things it cannot afford, stealing value from the savers. Third is wealth inequality. By the end of the Roman Empire, the top 1% held nearly half the wealth. The middle class was crushed by taxes and inflation. Today in America, the wealth gap is wider than it has been in a century. The middle class is evaporating, leaving only the very rich and the dependent poor. Fourth is political dysfunction. In the late Roman Empire, the Senate was useless. Emperors ruled by decree and were often assassinated or overthrown. In America, Congress has an approval rating below 20%. Presidents rule by executive order, only to have those orders reversed 4 years later. There is no long-term planning, only short-term power struggles. Fifth is the concept of bread and circuses. The Roman poet Juvenal wrote that the people only cared for free grain and gladiatorial games. The government kept the mob quiet with free food and violent entertainment. Today, we have food stamps and social media algorithms. The technology has changed, but the pacification strategy is the same. Distract the population so they do not notice the looting of the treasury. Sixth is demographic decline. Rome relied on foreign mercenaries because its own citizens stopped having children. Today, the American birth rate is well below replacement levels. The only population growth comes from immigration. A nation that does not reproduce effectively votes against its own future. Seventh is enemies at the gates. Rome faced pressure on every frontier. They held them off for centuries until they were too weak internally to fight. America faces China, Russia, and Iran. These powers are not strong enough to conquer America today, just as the Goths were not strong enough to conquer Rome at its peak. They are simply waiting for us to weaken ourselves. The parallels tell us what will happen. The differences tell us when. Here are the 5 reasons why America will collapse 10 times faster than Rome. Accelerator. Number 1, the speed of technology. Rome moved at the speed of a horse. A financial panic in Egypt took months to reach the capital in Italy. This slowness created stability. It created inertia. Today, information travels at the speed of light. When Silicon Valley Bank failed in 2023, billions of dollars were withdrawn in seconds via smartphone apps. Panic is now instantaneous. When the Federal Reserve prints money, inflation ripples through the global supply chain in months, not decades. Rome took 250 years to fall because the crisis moved slowly. America will fall in 25 years because our crisis is digital. Accelerator number 2, no room to expand. When Rome ran out of money, it would conquer a new territory. It would loot the gold temples of Jerusalem or the silver mines of Spain. This brought an infusion of cash that delayed the collapse. America hit its expansion limit in 1945. We dominated the global economy, but we cannot conquer new markets. The world is full. There's no new territory to loot. Instead of conquering land, we financialize the world with the dollar. But that game is over. The BRICS nations are rejecting the dollar. Without the ability to expand physically or financially, the internal rot consumes the system immediately. Accelerator number 3, invisible debasement. When a Roman emperor debased the coin, you could feel it. The coin became lighter. It changed color. Merchants would refuse it. This physical reality put a limit on how fast the government could steal. If they went too fast, commerce stopped. American debasement is invisible. A digital dollar in your bank account looks exactly the same today as it did yesterday. The government can print $5 trillion, as they did in 2020, and you do not see it until prices rise 2 years later. Because there is no physical limit, the government can destroy the currency much faster. They will print until the currency collapses completely. Accelerator number 4, fragility of globalization. Rome was an empire of self-sufficient provinces. If grain shipments from Egypt were blocked, Italy could grow its own wheat. The system was redundant. America is radically interdependent. We manufacture almost nothing essential. We rely on complex, just-in-time supply chains that span the globe. If a war breaks out in the South China Sea, we do not just lose a battle, we lose our antibiotics, our electronics, and our spare parts. Rome could survive a lost war for decades. America faces total supply chain collapse in weeks. We have traded resilience for efficiency, which creates extreme fragility. Accelerator number 5, the elite exit. The Roman elites were tied to the land. Their wealth was in vast estates in Italy or France. They could not wire their farms to a bank account in the Cayman Islands. If the empire fell, they lost everything. This gave them an incentive to try and save the system. The American elites have no such loyalty. Their wealth is digital. It is in stocks, bonds, and crypto. They have second passports in New Zealand or Malta. When the ship starts to sink, they do not have to patch the hole. They can simply fly away. Because the elites can exit instantly, they have every incentive to loot the system as fast as possible before it breaks. They are not trying to save America. They are liquidating it. Now, let us map the Roman timeline onto the American timeline using this factor of acceleration. Rome had a period known as the crisis of the 3rd century. It lasted 50 years, from 235 AD to 284 AD. It was a time of civil war, plague, and economic ruin. America entered its version of this crisis in 2008 with the Great Financial Crisis. If we apply a 10 times acceleration factor, Rome's 50-year crisis becomes a 5-year crisis for us. But because of money printing, we push the pain into the future. We kick the can down the road. In Rome, the crisis was paused by an emperor named Aurelian and then solidified by Diocletian. They imposed price controls. They forced people to stay in their jobs. They created a totalitarian state to keep the economy from collapsing. This bought Rome another century of life, but it was a life of stagnation and tyranny. America is approaching its Diocletian moment. We are seeing the beginning of price controls. We are seeing the weaponization of the financial system. We are seeing the implementation of central bank digital currencies. These are the tools of an empire trying to freeze a collapsing system. Based on the Roman data, adjusted for digital speed, we can predict the next decade. Between 2025 and 2027, we enter the acute crisis phase. This will likely involve a sovereign debt crisis, where the interest on the national debt becomes unpayable. This will trigger massive money printing, leading to high inflation. From 2027 to 2032, we will likely see the authoritarian stabilization. The government will not let the market crash. They will lock down the economy. They will restrict capital movement. You will not be allowed to move your money out of the country. They will enforce the use of digital currency to ensure tax compliance. It will look like stability, but it will be a prison. By 2033 to 2035, the stabilization fails. In Rome, the reforms eventually broke because the math did not work. The same will happen here. The debt is too high, the demographics are too old, the productivity is too low. Around 2035, America faces the Constantine moment. Emperor Constantine realized Rome could not be saved, so he moved the capital to the east, to Constantinople. He cut off the dying limb to save the body. America may have to retreat from the world stage. We may have to abandon our commitments in Europe and Asia to save the domestic economy. We may see a fragmentation where individual states begin to act like separate countries, ignoring federal law to protect their own economies. This is not a prophecy of doom. It is pattern recognition. History is a cycle, and we are at the end of a cycle. The Roman parallel tells you that the collapse is mathematically inevitable. The accelerator variables tell you it is imminent. If you think you have 30 years to prepare for retirement, you're operating on the wrong timeline. You have perhaps 5 years to position yourself. In Rome, who survived? The people who held physical assets, the people who owned productive land, the people who had strong local communities, the people who did not rely on the state for their bread, who perished, the people who held their wealth in the currency, the people who trusted the emperor to save them, the people who lived in the cities and produced nothing of value. The American middle class is currently doing exactly what the Roman middle class did. They are holding dollars. They are trusting pension funds. They are hoping the government has a plan. The government does not have a plan. The government has an exit strategy. The collapse of the American empire does not mean the end of the world. Rome fell, but life went on. Italy is still there. But the quality of life changed drastically. The security vanished. The trade routes closed. The standard of living plummeted. We are living through the most significant transition in human history. We are watching a 300-year empire undergo a controlled demolition in real time. You cannot stop it. You cannot vote your way out of it, but you can survive it. Do not prepare for a slow decline. Prepare for a sudden stop. Rome took centuries to die. America has run out of time. If you understand that the timeline is the most important variable, you are already ahead of 99% of the population. Subscribe to this channel because in the next video, we will analyze the British and Spanish empires to see exactly how their currencies failed and what assets protected the wealthy during the transition. History does not repeat itself, but it rhymes. And right now, the rhyme is getting faster.